Okay, so it's time for the next entry in our 300 blackout subsonic bullet testing series. And today's bullet is one I've been waiting to test for a long time. Kind of pretty excited to finally see what it'll do. That is the 240 grain Sierra Match King. This thing is huge. Massive bullet. It's your classic Sierra Match King design, hollow point boat tail. It's just very, very heavy. Now, the first problem, potential problem here is, so I have two test guns. I have an 8.5 inch SBR and a 16 inch rifle. They are both 1 in 8 twists. So I have questions about whether or not my barrels will be able to stabilize these. You know, a 1 in 7 might be a little bit better, but we're going to give it a go and try it out in my 1 in 8 twist barrels. The test powders for today are going to be, at this point, my favorite two 300 blackout powders, I would have to say, for subsonic use. Accurate 1680, the old favorite, and Hodgdon CFE BLK, the new kid on the block that we've been having a lot of success with. I'm really impressed by this powder so far. Now, to add into it a little bit, I actually have a box of factory ammo. DT Tactical by Double Tap Ammunition. These are 240 grain, hollow point boat tail match grade. They're Match Kings. And as you can see, it says 1,025 feet per second out of a 20-inch barrel. I don't know many people shooting 20-inch barreled 300 blackouts or not, or 300 blackouts out there. But I guess they exist. There she is. I guess I could talk about this crap here really quick. It is in Lake City brass, and it is in various head stamps of Lake City brass. We've got some that have the kind of the staked crimp, the 4 stakes around it. We've got some that have the circular crimp and all sorts of different dates. Now, the crimps are still in place. So I believe this ammunition is made out of brass that was, deconstructed military surplus or something, where, the bullets were pulled and then the brass has been reused with the original primers in place. You see that out there, right? If you go to the places that sell surplus brass from pulled ammo, you can get it with primers in it. I think that's what's going on here, is they've chopped down 5.56 brass and then converted it for 300 blackout. So for primers, we are going to use CCI number 400s in our hand loads. We did a primer testing video with CFE BLK, and the CCI number 400 seemed to outperform the 41s and 450s just a tiny bit. So we're going to try those out. The brass we'll be using is the same batch of Lake City converted brass that I've been shooting for quite some time. This has all been fully prepped, ready to rock and roll, and I've already primed it with our CCI 400s. So we're ready for powder and bullets here. Now, the first step in these subsonic bullet testing videos is I like to load up 5 rounds for each gun with each combination of bullet and powder. And then we go out and shoot them at like 10 yards to make sure that the bullet's going to stabilize. We get our initial velocity readings and we see how it's going to function the gun. I have already done that. I loaded up 20 rounds, went out and shot them, and I also shot 3 rounds of the factory ammo in each of my guns to make sure that they were going to stabilize as well. So that's what we did. I'll tell you what, I'll show that all here. Just be a minute or two. Go out and shoot a few test loads in half-grain increments. Most of them are around 11 to 13 grains is what we shot with both of the powders. So let's head out there, see that, and then we'll come back and have a look at some charts. Starting with accurate 1680. First up is 11 grains. Okay, CFE black, 11.5. Okay, 3 rounds of the factory ammo. And it did lock the bolt back, so that's good. Okay, 10.5 grains of 1680. Okay, CFE black, 11. Okay, 3 rounds of factory ammo. First 2 fed okay, but this last round didn't feed. And no bolt lock back. Okay, first and foremost, no function issues at all with any of our hand loads with either powder. That's a good thing. The factory ammo actually did better than I thought it would. Not so good with the 16-inch with carbine gas, which is no surprise, but the 8.5 seemed to work okay, so that's a good thing. What I was surprised about is there wasn't all that much velocity difference between my 8.5-inch gun and the 16-inch gun. The 8.5-inch gun was around 1,015 to 20 feet per second, something like that, and then the 16-inch gun was just shy of 1,050 feet per second. With our hand loads, what we normally use, the sort of powders we normally use, we get a pretty substantial gap in velocity between the 8.5-inch gun and the 16-inch gun. So that tells me they're probably using a much faster powder. Kind of like that old thing that goes around where everybody talks about how, 300 blackout, all the powder is burned by the time you get to whatever, length of barrel, whatever. I guess in the case of this stuff, that did kind of almost seem to be the case, like the 8.5 almost reached the velocities of the 16. I guess I could tear one of these apart just to see, maybe we could get some clue of what's going on in there. Let's do that. Why not? Okay, here's what we've got. Here's the bullet, and I put it next to a new 240 grain Match King, so it definitely is a Match King. Dimensions look the same. It had 9.2 grains or 9.16 grains of some powder in there, and then of course the case is the case. My guess on the powder is accurate number 9. Although unfortunately I don't have any accurate number 9 on hand, but I do have some accurate number 7. I'm pretty sure they look almost identical. So I've got a little pile of accurate number 7 on the left and a little pile of Winchester 296 on the right. That may also be what it is. But I have a feeling it's probably accurate number 9. The other thing, I'll try to get a close-up of a couple things. I'll get a close-up of the powders, and then I want to get a close-up of this bullet. It had a pretty darn heavy crimp on it, and the bullet is actually deformed just a little bit. Looking at it from the outside, the crimp didn't look that bad, but once I pulled it out and looked, it's got a little rim around the bullet, so I'll try to get that on camera as well. Okay, this is the powder that was in it. This is some accurate number 7. And then over here is some Winchester 296. Very similar powders, but definitely one of the ones on the faster side of things, I believe. There we are. Got the camera pointed up at the bright spot on the ceiling, and my calipers around the bullet, and you can see the little specks of light there where the crimp on the bullet gave it a little bit of a squeeze. Pretty interesting. I guess they could be using some powder that's not available to us reloading plebes, but I doubt it. That can't be that big of a company, right? Called Double Tap. It's like the guy that shows up to the range, got like a 48-inch lift on his truck. I shoot nothing but Double Tap, bro. Seems like the kind of like them on Facebook and they'll send you a 36-inch truck sticker or something. I don't know. Hopefully it shoots well, because good God almighty, it's $2 a shot. $2 freaking dollars. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Now, we're not going to spend $2 a shot, but this ain't going to be cheap either. The 240 grain Sierra Match King comes in boxes of 50, and it goes for 65 to 70 cents per bullet. So 35 bucks or so, 30, 35 bucks, I don't know, something like that, per box of 50. If you buy them 250 at a time, you can drop that down quite a bit. Or actually, they come in boxes of 500, and then you can get around the 50 cents per bullet range. Still very expensive. So we're going to have, 60 cents a shot here, something like that. All right, let's see, where were we before we started talking about frickin' factory ammo? For crying out loud, this is a reloading channel. I've had that box of ammo forever, and I've actually got a bunch of 300 blackout factory ammo that I need to shoot and test at some point, but I figured those are the only 240 grain factory rounds I've got, and I figured this would be the most appropriate time to bring them out. So, okay, so all of our function was good. So now we need to, the bullet holes. Back to our 1 in 8 twist barrels and the serious question about whether or not they would stabilize a 240. Everything looks good. I don't see any bullet holes from the factory ammo, from the CFE Black, or the 1680 that causes me the least bit of alarm. That is just outstanding. I was really concerned that this video would be over before it even got started because we see nothing but keyholes, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Our velocities were all the way down to about 900 feet per second on our lowest charges with both powders in both guns. So it was even stabilized them, down at these first shots, still looked fine. So good to go for stability. From this point on, we'll be putting the suppressor on and testing with the suppressor, so that's good. Don't have to worry about any baffle strikes. Now, we got our velocity data. Let's look at some charts. All right, let's look in the order we shot them. This first chart is the 8.5 inch gun with accurate 1680. Not the most beautiful chart ever, but I think it gets us in the ballpark. I want to pick out 3 different loads to load up 5 shot groups. And our goal here is 1,050 feet per second. And the trend line crosses 1,050 feet per second right about 12.3. So what I want to shoot is 12.1, 12.3, and 12.5 with accurate 1680. Okay, moving on to the next chart. Same gun, but with CFE Black. That's not a very good looking chart either. That 12.5 grain load kind of, actually both the 11.5 and the 12.5 grain load are a little bit wonky. But I think we're just going to trust the chart. It crosses, the trend line crosses 1050 at 12.9. So that's what I want to use for our middle charge. So let's shoot 12.7, 12.9, and 13.1. Should cover our good region. Okay, the next chart is the 16-inch gun with accurate 1680. That's a good looking chart right there, brother. Dots all line up right there nicely with the trend line. So this one's easy. We're going to shoot 11.3, 11.5, and 11.7. Moving on to the 16-inch gun with CFE Black. 4 out of the 5 look good. That one on that 13 grain charge, I don't know if I believe that guy. If it was a little higher, then the chart would have looked a whole lot better. But it looks like we are crossing 1050 right about 11.7. So let's shoot 11.5, 11.7, and 11.9. Yep, that looks good. I never even mentioned our overall length. The Sierra data for this bullet, they shoot 2.260. All the Sierra data seems to shoot 2.260. The problem with that is the Match Kings, you know, they have their hollow points a little bit irregular at times, and a lot of times I'll go for 2.260 and then end up with some that are 2.265, and then I'm running into magazine interference issues. So I backed it off 5 thousandths. What I went with is 2.255. Just for convenience reasons and hoping that we don't run into any problems with fitting stuff in the magazine. So I have got 60 pieces of brass ready to rock and roll. So let's start out with accurate 1680 and start weighing out some charges. All right, so I got our accurate 1680 charges all weighed out and getting ready to seat the bullets. Should be very long. What I said, 2.255 is what I'm shooting for. Yep, definitely get some variation here. 2.254, 2.252, might have went too short. 2.252, 2.257, 2.251. So a little bit short, maybe like a 2.252 average, but that is close enough. And I'm going to use a Leaf Factory crimp die just to put a little squeeze on them. Shouldn't be enough to distort the bullets like that factory ammo had, but just enough to make sure that case mouth is out of the way, won't cause us any issues. Not a lot of drama here with the loading. It's all pretty straightforward, so we'll skip over a lot of it and get out to the range here quick. Okay, so I'm just finishing up seating the last of the bullets here in the CFE Black batch. Everything's gone according to plan. No surprises, no problems. This has just been a really straightforward loading session. These guys seat nicely and nothing weird to report. Let's hit the range. Okay, it's time to get started with our 240 grain Sierra Match Kings. We're going to start off with my 8.5 inch gun. This is a Rainier Ultra Match barrel with 1 in 8 twist. I've got my Silencer Co. Omega suppressor. On there, I've got my Magneto Speed chronograph, GG&G bipod, Vortex 4-16 scope, BCM rail, brought to you by Carl's Jr. So 12.1 grains is our first load. I think I'm more or less zeroed. I'm a little bit worried. I've got the dots pretty close on this target. I'm trying to cram all the shots on one piece of paper. I expect to shoot some good groups with these bullets, so let's hope for the best. And I'm going to move our scope down about 1.5 minutes. Nah, let's go a minute. So down 1 minute just to make sure we keep everything on paper. Nah, 1.5 minutes. Yeah, minute and a half. Okay, next up is 12.3 grains. Looks like we guessed our velocities just right on this one. Last up with 1680 is 12.5 grains. All right, that last group there is not too bad. Not too bad at all. Our first charge with CFE Black is 12.7 grains. See how it does. All right, that's a good group. Looks like we missed the velocity there. It started a little bit too hot, but that's okay, because when your extreme spread and standard deviation numbers are this good, you can creep up there a little bit, 1060, 1070, without getting stray supers. All right, let's see what 12.9 does. That one went super at 1102. That was another super at 1102. It's funny how much that supersonic threshold moves around. Back in the summertime, it was almost always right at like the upper 1120s, almost 1130. And now here in the dead of winter, dry air, cooler air, it's all the way down to 1100. Okay, last up is 13.1 grains. All right, all of those guys except the last one was super. Last one was down to 1,097 feet per second. All right, let me go move the camera down and we will shoot the factory ammo out of the 8.5. Okay, so I got 13 of these things left, so we'll shoot 7 of them here in the 8.5 inch gun. Hopefully I got the camera zoomed out enough. They're hitting left, not too far off, just a little bit left. Yeah, some of those will definitely be off camera, but yeah, it hit left and a little bit low. You didn't miss much. The group was a little bit gross. All right, let me swap out to the 16-inch gun, and while we've got the camera set up there, save me a walk down there, we'll go ahead and shoot this factory ammo in the 16-inch. Okay, this is my 16-inch rifle. It has got a 16-inch AR stoner barrel with carbine gas. So I won't be surprised at all if we have function issues here with this factory ammo, but there's only one way to find out. See what happens. And once again, I forgot to plug in my chronograph like a big fat idiot. All right, really nice group. Locked the bolt back, so nothing to complain about here with the suppressor on. All right, I need to go move the camera again, and then we'll get down to business. Okay, so our first charge is 11.3 grains with accurate 1680. Okay, decent group, good function, and velocity a little bit low. That's about perfect for our first charge. Next is 11.5. And 11.7. All right, that's a pretty good showing for accurate 1680. Really nice standard deviation numbers, good looking groups. So let's move on to CFE Black and hope for the same. Our first charge is 11.5 grains. Hopefully I got the camera low enough. We're hitting a little bit low. Velocity's a little bit low. All right, in case that's off camera, just a nice little group, straight low. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the scope up about a minute. Yeah, 1 minute, just for the heck of it. 11.7 grains. Okay, last up is 11.9 grains. I'm afraid we're not going to quite get to 1050, but that's okay. Boy, this gun really seems to like this bullet. All right, pretty awesome. Perfect function all around, pretty good groups. And we pretty much got to 1050 there with that last load. Really impressed. So let's get back to the bench and analyze things a bit. Okay, so this video has turned out better than I possibly could have hoped for. Let's start out and let's just get this factory ammo out of the way. That was the group with the 8.5. This was weird. Like the 8.5 just did not like this ammo for some reason. 16-incher loved it. 1.1 inch group, that was a 6-shot group, and then this 7-shot group was 4.6 inches. Yeah, I don't know what the heck was going on there. That kind of freaks me out. I don't have any explanation for that, but it's clearly pretty good ammo in some guns. It ran my 16-inch gun fine, so not a lot bad to say about DT Tactical by Double Tap. Okay, enough of that. Yeah, there we are. You know, for $2 a shot, they ought to give you some nice brass. You know, nothing wrong with Lake City converted brass, but be nice to have some sweet 300 blackout brass. All right, let's see, where should we start? Let's start with the groups. The 8.5-inch gun. I don't know if this was me or if it truly was the accurate 1680 just not shooting quite as well, but the first two groups were over 2 inches, and then I think that was our last, yep, after this one, our biggest group from then on was 1.5 inches. But we had 1.3 there, a little bit hot, 1,071 feet per second. So, yeah, I don't know. CFE Black tightened up nicely, 0.8 inches there, and then a couple of 1.4 inch groups. That's just good stuff. Really good standard deviation numbers, you know, on the whole. So not a lot to complain about here. Pretty darn good. Let's look at the charts for these two powders. First up is the accurate 1680 chart. So we were pretty close on this one. That 12.3 grain charge was, it averaged 1,046 feet per second. Had a great standard deviation number of 6.4. So we were right on top of that one and guessed the charge correctly. So let's move on to the CFE Black chart. Yes, so our shots were just a little bit hot. You know, those initial 5 test charges just misled us a little bit, and we loaded them up just a touch too hot. Our lowest charge of 12.7 grains averaged 1,073 feet per second. So it looks to me like 12.6 would be the number. That would have been just about perfect and been 1050. So not too bad. Pretty decent standard deviation numbers, 10.7, 11.1, and 18.8. That 18.8 isn't exactly great, but the 10 and the 11, that's good stuff. So overall, pretty darn happy with the performance in our 8.5 inch gun. This definitely ranks this up here with, you know, the best bullets I've ever shot in this gun. The 8.5 inch gun generally doesn't shoot quite as well as the 16-incher. We get some good groups, but this consistency here is pretty darn snazzy. I like it. I like it a lot. Moving on to the 16-inch gun. This was freaking fantastic. Outstanding. And once again, it seems that CFE Black was a little bit better shooter than 1680. You know, 1680, our biggest group here was 1.5 inches, and our best one was 1.1. So excellent, excellent groups. But down here with CFE Black, we were right about an inch, 0.8, 1.2, and 1.0. Overall, just an outstanding bullet. I think this is probably the best bullet we've ever tested as far as overall accuracy in the 16-incher. We've had some good shooting bullets. The 220 grain Sierra Match King shot really well, and several others, but this is right there with them and probably the best. Our velocity guesses were a whole lot better here. Both of our highest charges, 11.7 of 1680 and 11.9 of CFE Black, were right about 1050. 1050 and 1048. So it's looking like these two powders, almost the same charge weight, get you where you need to be. You know, 11.7 and 11.9. So 2/10 of additional powder for CFE Black. Over on the 8.5 inch gun, it was 3/10. So differences were 3/10 and 2/10. So that might be a good starting point for you. If you've already got a load worked up for 1680, just add 2 or 3/10 to it, and that's your CFE Black charge, most likely with these with supersonics. Let's have a look at the charts for these guys. This is accurate 1680. Yep, like I said, 11.7. We were right on top of that 1,050 feet per second line. It was outstanding standard deviation of 8.1 feet per second. So we were a little bit lower than we anticipated, but we got there in the end. So that was good to go. Nothing weird going on here. Just good stuff. All right, next, the CFE Black. Again, outstanding standard deviation, 6, 8.1, and 7.6. So those dots are grouped up nice and tight. And that 11.9 grain charge is right on top of it. It averaged 1,048 feet per second. Just awesome. Just really, 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 really awesome. Could not be happier. Cannot believe that they shot this well in the 1-in-8 twist barrels. I've been freaking out about this for too long. I've looked forward to shooting these for a long time, but I always in the back of my mind, it's like, man, that's probably going to be a disaster. I'm probably going to have major stability issues and it'll just be a dumpster fire. This was freaking amazing. Really amazing. And it helps boost my confidence in 1-in-8 twist barrels. So I think that pretty much wraps things up. Really happy with the results. So, all right, I'm rambling and repeating myself, which means it's time to go. So I will see you guys next time.